Hey, what's going on, guys? We're back with part 14 of our learning C# tutorial, and for this video we're going to move away a bit from collision, because obviously before we were finished with the entire game we want to have enemy versus enemy collision as well. But just for the time being, we're going to move away from collision and move into some sort of combat system. Now, right now, it's a very similar game system to like Mario, but remember I was saying, we could mix games, so when I was thinking this game we could probably mix like Mario with Metroid or something like that. So I was thinking we could make a game where like you could shoot some sort of weapon towards where your mouse is facing, whether that's left or right. So we're going to go ahead and start that. Let's make a new class inside of our player script. Let me close out of my other stuff maybe. I just booted up my laptop, so it's a little slow right now. Should get up to speed in a minute. If it proves to be a problem, I'll stop the video until a little later once my computer gets up to speed. And we'll call this we'll call it player combat. Alright, let's go ahead and set this up the normal way. The first property we want is a float for ROF, or rate of fire. And maybe later on we can go ahead and, when we do power-ups, we can do stuff that'll modify the rate of fire. So maybe one power-up will make you shoot faster, or some sort of weapon upgrade. But for now, we're going to keep it simple. So we'll need a rate of fire. We can default that to, I don't know, 0.4f. And then we need a game object for our projectile. Now, obviously, right now we have game object. Later on, we might go ahead and change this to an actual projectile class. We have just for projectiles, where inside that script we can handle collision and damage to enemies, things like that. And for now, I think that's all we need. So let's go ahead and create our update function. And let's get it so, actually, maybe it's still in our test script, I think, where we had it so, no, it wasn't our test script. What was it? When we click stuff, oh, here we go, spawn object. Okay, well, it's still a very simple script. I can't remember how far we got along with it, but I'm just going to go ahead and copy this code just so we can reuse it. Normally, if it's a longer piece of code, we could I would reuse it. Now, first thing you'll notice is this was called obj, so we're just going to change that from obj to projectile. And instead of input.get mouse button down, we want .get mouse button, because get mouse button down is only the frame where you press the mouse button down, so it'll be like you'd have to click, lift up, and then click again for the second time, whereas just get mouse button, it'll trigger every single frame. But this will shoot once per frame, so we want to do another if statement to see if it's been a certain amount of time. So let's make another private float, and we'll call it last shot equal to 0. Okay, and then in here we'll make another if statement. If time minus last shot is greater than or equal to the rate of fire, then we can go ahead and actually spawn the projectile. And then we have to go ahead and do last shot equals time. I'll explain this in a minute. It's better just to get stuff in my my mind, or get stuff down out of my mind before I talk about it. So here we're checking if this frame we have the mouse button down, and if the time since our last shot is greater than our rate of fire, then we're resetting the last shot to this frame, which is time.time, and then spawning the projectile. Now, another thing that I want to do is we'll go ahead and do a public transform fire transform. Now, a transform is similar to a game object. It's actually a component on a game object, but it's the special component that stores the position data and the rotation data. So we can go ahead and do fire transform dot position and our fire transform dot dot rotation. Now the reason I did fire position or fire transform instead of our default transform dot position, which is ours. If you remember, we had that problem with collision the other time about our center position. This is the same thing. If we're spawning an object at our center point, we're going to run into things like, colliding with ourselves. In the first place, it won't even look good. It'll look like, something's coming out of our player. We don't want that. Whereas, if our player had some sort of weapon in his hand, we would put the transform at the end of the barrel of the weapon, let's say, and that's where it would spawn from. So it's a good practice to use a transform for that sort of thing. And then that's it for now, because what this will do is spawn it, and then we'll have a script inside the projectile to actually go ahead and do the collision, do the forward motion and whatnot. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a new folder. Actually, a new parent folder, and we'll call this projectiles. Okay. And then we're going to change this game object here to I projectile. Okay. Okay. Next, we're going to go in here and we're going to actually create that I projectile class. If you want to, you can choose the interface. It'll just set it up for you. Obviously, we're still going to have to remove all this stuff here, though. Okay. Actually, I don't know what I was thinking. We don't need an interface. We could do an interface, but I'd rather not explain it right now. So we're going to go ahead and just keep that as a public class. And then inherit from auto behavior. So, once again, this is sort of like our iHealth script, where it stores just generic data. Our iHealth is abstract. And, well, I guess we could make this abstract as well, just to keep things simple. And we'll go ahead and make I scratched that, not abstract. We'll make it virtual, and I'll explain that in a minute. We'll make a public virtual void motion. Oops. And then inside here, we're going to make it move forward, so we'll do transform, dot translate, not transform point. And we will do vector3 dot forward times, not space, times speed times time dot delta time. We're going to go ahead and make that speed variable, default it to 6. Okay, so what this means is transform.translate is basically the same thing as our character controller.move function, except this does not do collision, so we'll have to go ahead and do collision somewhere else. So transform translate forward times our speed times our unit of time measure. Now you'll notice we used a new keyword called virtual, and what that means is it can be overridden by our child class. And what that means is we can attach an I projectile onto a game object because it's not abstract, but for the most part, for every new projectile, so let's say you get a power up and it changes which thing you shoot, you'd want a different script for that projectile so it does different things. But for every single one, it'll default to this one, but if you want to, inside that specific script, you can go ahead and make different motion for it. So like if you want one to, I don't know, go in a wave pattern or do some sort of arcing motion towards the enemy, that's what that would do. Hold on while I restart the video. I can only record 10 minutes at a time. So that's what virtual does. It just marks it as overridable by the class that inherits this. Alright, and then the next thing we want to do is collision, but I'm going to go ahead and stop the video now just to keep it short. So I'll see you guys next time.